I'm great. I'm ready to moderate some good topics here. Have a good format. I think you both have the topics, but I have some sub ideas below if you want me to just spout those off too while I'm asking, whatever you feel.
Pete, we want you to drive as the host.
Okay.
We want to be guests. Both of us did zero preparation for this. And,
Now we're getting to it.
All right. I can do that.
we want you to moderate uh a this is what I told Pete, Mark. I was like, treat it like the presidential debate.
Now we're talking. I like that.
You know? So yeah, look, we've had some really good back and forths on social media, I thought, on LinkedIn. And this is just sort of a more real-time venue where the crowd can also participate and ask for elaboration on certain issues. And yeah, I mean, with that, I think I'll just turn it over to Pete.
Perfect. All right. Awesome. Well, we have a few things. We have four main questions here for our debate. I want you guys to do a little bit in the beginning, just introduce yourselves. You have some differing views on a couple of key areas. We've broken those down. The way I would like to structure this, so I'm going to ask the question. We'll rotate who goes first. We can have Mark go first because he's the guest. The way we'll do it, 2 minutes to respond to the question. Also state what side you're on, please, so everybody is clear if people don't know that much about your public beef. State what side you're on. Everybody will each get 2 minutes. I have a stopwatch here. As you're nearing the 2-minute mark, if you're really in it, I'll just put my finger up so that you know that we're about to, you should wrap up your idea. I don't want to interrupt the flow, so I'm just going to put my finger up.
Which finger?
Ah.
Right index.
I'm already checking this RB2B crowd, making sure it's all going to stay kosher.
So what we'll do too, so everyone will have 2 uninterrupted minutes in the beginning. We'll switch who goes first after each question. After that, rebuttals, it would be great if each person had 1 minute to uninterrupted rebuttal, and then we can do a little open discussion. I would like to keep each section to about 10 minutes apiece so we have room for questions at the end.
Let's go.
Sweet.
All right.
And first, I just want to thank all 147 attendees for coming the day after Labor Day. No small feat. No small feat. I was worried about it. But hey, we're all here and it's going to be fun. So go ahead, Pete.
All right. Well, let's do some introductions really quickly. My name is Pete Crowley. I'm the head of growth here at RB2B. I will be as impartial as possible, even though I do get my paychecks from RB2B. Adam and Mark, if you could each introduce yourself, and then we'll kick it off.
Go ahead, Mark.
Thank you, Adam. Yes, Mark Kosoglow, currently working on a project that I'll be announcing next week at SaaStr of what I'm doing. But mostly this summer, been hanging with the kids, being a dad, working hard, doing my thing.
Sweet. And if you're on this webinar, I hope you know who I am, Adam Robinson, founder, CEO of RB2B. And I'm really excited to have this conversation. So let's do it.
Fantastic.
Do you always say that, Adam, though? Do you always say that?
No, actually, I didn't say that before the Clark Barron debate. I wasn't excited about having that conversation at all, and it was very uncomfortable the whole time. Clark, if you're here, thank you. He sometimes is here. Other times.
Fair enough. This one will take a different course in a good way. So our first question, Mark, you are going to be our first speaker here. So is VC versus Bootstrap? So you guys have kind of bantered back and forth on LinkedIn about which one is the better way to fund your venture. I want to be very specific here too. We are talking about the world of B2B SaaS. Obviously, if you're starting a restaurant, you should not try to seek venture capital. If you're starting Uber, you probably have to. So a couple of just guiding lines before I have you go, Mark. If you could just touch on these, you don't have to touch on all of them, but just some advantages and disadvantages of each funding model for B2B SaaS companies, maybe how that choice of funding impacts growth strategies, and are there specific scenarios where one model is clearly superior to the other? So Mark, if you could take a side, and then I'll give you 2 minutes. Floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So a couple of things is, um, Adam and I have talked a lot about this, and I think we've both experienced each side of the ledger. And I think, Adam, I might be putting words in your mouth already. But, I don't think that there's one that's good and one that's bad. They're just different, right? And I think at different times, the market wants different things. 10 years ago, if you wanted to bootstrap, you're a fucking idiot. And everybody's like, you're not growing fast enough and you get put out of business. Now, if you take venture capital, you're a fucking idiot because you should be bootstrapping and be so efficient. So, like, this is why one of the reasons why I hate the markets and hate investors is because for some reason they changed their minds. There's, and a lot of things you could say about, what we did at Outreach, but that's what the market wanted at the time. We did what the market wanted, and we were rewarded proportionately. Uh, the market doesn't want that anymore, so therefore don't do it. Like, and a lot of things get affected. And I've lived the bootstrap life too. In a way, my first job out of college, I was a 1099 commission only sales rep. I was given a printout with like the little lines on the side or the holes from the dot matrix printer of my 370 some accounts in my territory, and that was it. And my job was to do everything. And I didn't get a base salary. I didn't have any money. I had to bootstrap that entire business, if you will. And believe me, it had a P&L to it and everything. And so I did that. I did that for 8 years, and I took a territory that nobody had been living in or been supported for 6 months or for longer than 6 months to one of the top 10% of the sales territories in a company out of 250. So, but I've also lived the venture side too. And, I think the venture side is a little bit anti my personality. I'm a tight ass, I'm kind of cheap on my own. And, I remember at Outreach when I started, the way that hiring went was I didn't hire until somebody cried for mercy. Like, I have too many deals. My win rate's going down. My deal size is going down. All this stuff started happening. And so that's when I would hire. And then as more and more investors got involved, there was more and more pressure to hire ahead, to hire capacity as you needed it. And that's what the company started doing. And that's what the market wanted. And, little contrarian to me, but we figured it out. And I think we did a pretty good job with it. But ultimately, what I think is that if I was just me and what I wanted to do, you really have to have something like, Adam, listen, Adam has a couple wins under his belts. He can afford to bootstrap something and figure things out. At least that's my impression. A lot of people like me, I have 4 kids. I can't afford to bootstrap something. I can't not work for 2 years and figure it out. Like, I have college to pay and rent to pay at colleges and food to buy and all that kind of stuff. So, I think that your situation as a person really determines kind of what route you want to go. But once you get a win under your belt, like, shit, fucking go for the bootstrap and see what happens and earn it, earn it all, win it all, right? But like, for me, that didn't make sense when I got started. I did family first and business second, and I did not have the kind of personal runway required to do that.
Perfect. And thanks for kind of touching on different situations of when one might be good versus the other. Adam?
Yeah, that's unfair because in social media, we all like talking in absolutes. you just added a bunch of nuance to this that is that's crippling. No,
Try to make it hard for you.
yeah, exactly. So I have like I feel like when I speak to social media, a lot of the time I'm talking to myself 5 years ago. And I feel like it just because I wanted this content 5 years ago and it wasn't there. So, somebody who I kind of have as my level of experience, actually like understanding why they're doing what they're doing and how they think about the world, I couldn't find it anywhere. I look for it a lot. And then I also think that I try to advocate for founders in what I put out. And I think that would help explain a lot of the problem people have with a lot of the definitive stuff that I say. If like you can't end posts like this, but like if every post would end by the way, I'm advocating for early stage founders. So that being said, man, and I think you're absolutely right about the stage everyone's life is at. It's like so different in that, and that's a calculus, right? And then, as Remy said, the size of the idea as well sort of like has an impact on it. But like, the thing that hurts my heart the most with founders is that I think the calculus of outcome is just like wrong. You know, so what do I mean when I say that? So like a couple things. One, again, we are in a moment where it's easy for me to say this and not get chastised. I appreciate that 10 years ago I would have. Still, uh, you know, creating a profitable and growing business from the founder's standpoint, you win in every scenario. When you get on this path of getting on the VC treadmill, there's one way that you win big. And I think that founders, and rightfully so, it was happening, thought that that probability 5 years ago of them winning big was a lot higher than it has panned out to be. We'll see if that comes back. But it was a long time when stuff was going up, and a lot of those valuations were contingent upon stuff going up indefinitely. And it's just not the case. So there's this, look, a lot of, I think the reason founders are founders is because they ultimately want to be, you know, kind of wealthy someday or whatever. But I think a lot of the reason people are doing what they're doing is because they want to not work for the man. They want to sort of control what they're doing. And a lot of the founder CEOs that I see, if you were to look at kind of like what they have control over and then what they're going to their quote unquote bosses open-handed for, hat in hand, like they got to ask for raises. You know, it's like you're sort of on the VC treadmill. It's like, look, I think we all understood what that trajectory was, but to me, it looks as though you are signing up to have a boss, kind of like no matter how little of a percentage of the company you have. Pete, I think you're probably raising your hand. So yeah, I'm trying to come up with like a matrix or something to like express this, but it's like the uncertainty of outcome. So like Sam Jacobs put out a post last week. He's like, growth is worth 3 times more than profit. It used to be worth 13 times more than profit. And I wrote a comment in there. I was kind of fired up about it. I was like, it's really hard to monetize that 3x growth because it requires some type of definitive transaction for the employees or the founders to actually get any of that. Whereas like profit from a founder standpoint, and if you got your employees on shadow equity or something, you're monetizing that every day. And it's like, it's just so hard for me to even rectify what certainty versus that uncertainty is. So anyway.
Mark, give a rebuttal to that. You can kind of talk more about how that too has changed. I mean, you both alluded to the fact that like this mindset and the strategy has changed over the past 10 years.
Yeah. I don't know if I have a rebuttal, but this is, listen, I think that a lot of founders fucked up. They thought when their company was worth $1 billion, they were rich, even though they weren't rich at all. And because they were staying, you know, in nice hotels and eating nice dinners on the company's dime, they thought that they'd made it, and they hadn't. And then when paying their mortgage and stuff, when they were the founders of these billion-dollar companies. And if you don't want to get into that, and you don't want to chance that, and you don't understand it, then don't get into it. And if you can't bootstrap a business yourself, then don't do that. And you know what? Some people like to have a boss, and that's okay to like to have a boss, right? But you have to make those decisions for yourself. And I think that that's where a lot of the confusion comes in is I have an idea, and I like with this 100% agree with Adam. I've never met a founder that doesn't want to be rich. So let's just get fucking real about it. They want to make money, tons of money. And most of them are too stupid to have figured out how to do it right. And, you know, like building a business and making money are two totally different things. And like, listen, example numero uno, I think I know how to build a business. I'm not super rich. I'm not super wealthy. I'm still trying to figure that part out, right? And so, like, you know, there's a lot of my AEs at Outreach that are way more wealthy than I am because they figure out how to do money. Money is not my strong point. So I'm kind of pointing the figure at me a little bit here too. But like, I think that I do know how to build a business, and I need a good partner that has the money sense and the things like that. But at the same time, like, I'll never forget my first board meeting at Catalyst. where I went in and they were trying to tell me how to do my job. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, no, if you want to tell me how to write a good email, like go fuck yourself. I'm done with that. I'm sorry. I'm like dropping the F-bombs like crazy here, but that's how I feel. Like, get out of my business. You've hired me to do something. If you don't like me, fire me. Otherwise, let me do my thing. And once they let me do my thing, everything started going great. We doubled revenue in 14 months after it taking them 5 years to get to 5 million bucks. And so like I think the big thing is like, if you're a bootstrap, you are the boss. There's a lot of good and bad that come along with that. But ultimately what you got to do is you got to be ready for the challenge that you have picked and like either embrace it or move on.
Love it. People are saying this has been very
I
agreeable,
heard that.
logical
Soft, too
discussion
nice.
so far. So let's switch up the topic then. I think I think we can get a little more into it here. So Adam has coined a term recently. Mark, I think you know what it is. Inbound led outbound. Mark has said this is not real. Adam, that's been around forever. It's called marketing. So Adam is going to go first this time. I would like Adam to define inbound led outbound first. And the discussion is really about, does this approach truly exist, or is it simply a combination of inbound and outbound strategies? Adam, take it away, please.
Okay, so my contention is that the way to make outbound work in today's world, you have to do inbound led outbound, which is basically creating website visits, however you're going to do it. And then through that intent signal, and you can create intent signal elsewhere, but you go after those people with small sales teams. And it works better than cold. There's been a sort of very big shift in what I would like to call spray and pray cold outreach, which I think was the de facto behavior of most early stage startups, and it stopped working. So it's like, what do you do? And our tool sort of fits into this, and that's what I think inbound led outbound is. Whether or not it's new, look.
Somebody read Play Bigger. Just admit it. You read Play Bigger.
The whether or not it is new, the unbelievable benefit to a company that you get if you can create a category is undeniable, right? And I love Dave Gerhardt and Dave Cancel. When I was starting what is now retention.com, I was just like looking in awe at what these guys did. They created a chat app, and then they made everyone think it was something called conversational marketing, which is just incredible. So was conversational marketing new? I don't think so. But I would highly recommend. Dave Cancel did a podcast at the end of last year with these dudes in Connecticut. I'll get a link when Mark's entering, and I'll put it in the chat. I would highly recommend listening to that. He entered that space knowing there were already 600 competitors. And he's like, it was so different than HubSpot, because HubSpot, there were like a handful of SaaS companies, and it was pricing disruption. Now, the whole market for SaaS had evolved to the point where it was totally commoditized, and the disruption had to be brand. So he was like studying Procter & Gamble, all this other stuff, and came to the conclusion that this category creation effort was the only way they were going to win. I think they were unbelievably successful at it. I think now we have this incredible opportunity to do it way more efficiently through influencers than they did. The world's just like ready for that now. But that is my honest response. Is it new or not? My answer is irrelevant. Does not matter.
That's fair. I think though, to me, when you take something that exists and you rename it, a couple of things can happen. One is people can actually spur on new thoughts and new ideas about it, or you can mess up how somebody's already thinking about something because they think they're doing something wrong because they don't have it, they're not doing what they should do. And to me, that's inherently dangerous to people, especially when you're someone that is broadcasting to a lot of people. Listen, my first job as a seller, I sold fundraisers to schools. So if you ever sold candy bars or magazines and got a little toy for doing it, like that was me way back when in the late 90s. And back then, my marketing VP of that company would be like, listen, we got your air cover. You're the ground troops. we do this stuff on the web. We do this stuff with email marketing. We do all this stuff. Your job is to capitalize on the air cover that we're doing. Like, I don't see how it's any different. Like, this is the same stuff we've been doing for a long time. It's like marketing's job is to create demand, hence demand generation. I mean, that's a whole discipline inside of marketing. Outbound's job is to make sure you're paying attention to the demand gen and prioritize leads that are coming inbound over cold leads that you don't have anything to say to. To me, this is like so fundamental. I learned this in like Marketing 301 at Penn State University, which is a class that I only got a D in. So I know you learn that. That's how basic it was. So like, I don't think that like we need to rename stuff. And listen, I did the same thing at Catalyst. So like, I was like, listen, we can't be a customer success platform. Gainsight owns that. They'll never get it. Let's do customer-led growth and become a customer growth platform. And did that have a massive effect on our company? Yes, it did. Again, it took 5 years to get to 5 million. It took us less than 14 months to go from 5 to 10. And we changed conversations. People thought differently about it. But like, there are things that people needed to rethink there. And maybe that's true here too. But like, spray and pray has never worked. And I've told this story more recently, but when I started at Outreach, we had a user named Vlad, and we nicknamed him Vlad the Destroyer. Vlad was the first person to send 1,000 emails in a day. And we're like, whoa, he broke the system really early. We're like, dude, you can't do that. Then Vlad was the first person to send 10,000 messages in a day. And we're like, Vlad, you're a freaking spammer. Then Vlad tried to send 100,000 emails in a day. And that's when we cut him out and said, you can't be a user anymore. Was it working for him? Yeah. In a world where like the email volume was somewhat uncontrollable, it semi-worked, right? And that was how it does. But listen, I'll never stop saying it. A lazy man's better is more. And if you're lazy, you do more. You send more emails when your emails aren't working instead of making them better emails. You know, and like to me, we're loading up a whole new world of stuff where like I got our B2B on my site. And now guess what? People that are looking for jobs, people that type in the wrong URL, people that have no interest in buying, people that wanted some piece of content that doesn't signal anything are now getting bombarded with all this automation. You got like RB2B and Clay and SendSpark. And the next thing you know, like I can't go on a fucking website without getting 83 touches. And if I go on 10 websites that day, I can't go to my inbox anymore. And like, to me, that's not a world I want to live in. I don't want to live in that world. And you know what? Like, I like a good ad. And when somebody's like, hey, can we collect your data to do more personalized ads? I'm like, hell yeah, you can. No problem. I'll take better ads. But I don't want to be like, you know, Adam Santosh said, oh, how's it different than a Ring doorbell? Which is literally the worst analogy I've ever heard in my entire life. I can't believe he put that out there, man. A Ring doorbell is so different than a website thing, because the website thing is like, if I had a Ring doorbell and when somebody pulled up and I wasn't at my house and I saw them, and then I drove home as fast as I could, tracked them down on the sidewalk, screeched to a halt right in front of them, like, yo, you're at my house. I'm so fucking dope. Like, you should come back, right? That's what we're doing that's what all this automation is doing. Nobody wants to be treated like that. So I just think that, you know, it's super interesting. It's super cool. Can you see who's on your site? That's really cool and interesting. I just don't think people have figured out how to do it correctly in a way where if once more and more people start doing it, it just doesn't tank stuff. And call me old man on the get off the lawn, but that's what I think.
So Adam, you do have an opportunity to respond. We will also get into the founder brand getting extinct. That's question 4, Mark. So you're getting right to it. I like it. Adam, do you have a response, or should we jump to the 0 to 1 founder question?
My response, by the way, Eduardo just asked, are you guys sitting and recording? These get posted the next morning every day on my YouTube. You can get to this playlist by going to rb2b.com, scrolling down to the footer and looking at the top right corner. And well, yeah, the response, look, our churn rate is like 10% a month. I would have to agree with Mark that the world does not really understand how to use this technology perfectly well yet. And we're trying to help with that. I don't think that we totally understand exactly how to use it or instruct people how to use it perfectly either. And another observation is, Pete actually had this when I was talking to him on Friday. If you were to like categorize the euphoria of people with our B2B. It's like very little guys who are monitoring their traffic, and then kind of like very large guys who have a growth function that know how to appropriately act on this type of signal. And then there's an in-between, which we thought was going to be our bread and butter, of people who are primarily inbound or primarily outbound. If you're primarily outbound, you kind of need more leads than we can give you in the ICP. If you're primarily inbound, you're not going to hire somebody to go after these leads. Your thing is already working for you. So, strangely, my instinct is to try to create more value for the people who are euphoric about monitoring their traffic with this technology, which is like kind of what this Traffic Insights is about. So anyway, Mark, I hear you. We hope to be a mission critical part of solving this problem. We got really good at it on the D2C side, in just instructing people exactly what to do to send a highly targeted, super relevant, and very timely communication that worked and got transaction on. So I'm optimistic, but yeah, fully automated is literally the worst thing a brand could do in 90%, 99% of cases. I don't look, there's this other dynamic, which I just want to say and take ownership of. The clay thing is very cool.
Super cool.
Yeah, but it's like there, it kind of like what you were saying is like, I believe that there is a difference between incredible LinkedIn content and something that you would do if you were like, you know, an enterprise sales org with a small TAM.
Yeah.
You know, it's just not the same thing, but it is amazing content, you know.
Listen, I love automating crap in my house and like turning the lights on with, you know, Alexa and all, which, of course, she just heard me and all that kind of stuff. But you know what? Like at some point, like I couldn't figure out what is the name of my freaking bedroom lamp and how do I turn this damn thing off? Because I got, oh yeah, she doesn't even know who it is. So that's like, I think like ultimately where we're getting is we, as we're all in technology, most of us are techie nerds. It's not just what we do for our career. Most of us are kind of like that in our real life, whether it's like the super technical backpacking stuff that we buy or like the home automation stuff that we do. And when we see a tool that can say, here's you on the website, and we can pass that to a tool that says, this is everything we know about you. And then we can pass that to a tool that can write an email. Then we can pass that to a tool that sends a bunch of spam. It looks dope. And it seems like, oh, well, we would just do this anyway. But unfortunately, when you do it with everybody and everybody's doing it, that's when it peters out. It doesn't work. And listen, do I think that we'll find it out? Yes. But let's not forget, buyer's journey looks like this. 70% of people are unaware they have a problem. 20% of people are aware they have a problem, but don't care because they have other priorities. 7% and know they have a problem. They're considering buying a solution, and 3% are evaluating a solution. Only 10% of your market is going to put out signals. And if you build your GTM around the 10% of the market that puts out signals, which everybody has access to the same signals, and most people are running the same kind of automations, you're just like everybody else. And if you're just like everybody else, you get crappy results. I think what we need to figure out is the 90% of people that aren't putting out signals, they'll engage with you if you're interesting, if you're creative, and if you're relevant. And that's hard. And I think that that's where the future of go-to-market is how do we get people into a conversation where we can help them understand what their problem is so we can help them make a confident decision about how to move forward. And that's just, this signal-based stuff is like, to me, just not, listen, do you need to be good at it as a GTM motion? I 100% agree with that. Is it going to put you over the top? Is it going to help you grow again? Is it going to help you hit your numbers? I think it might be a small contributor.
Perfect. I think that's a great place to end, especially those points you made at the end. So thank you both. Good perspectives on either side. Let's move over to number 3. So, and by the way, 2 minutes, I don't think is enough time to express ideas. I've been giving you guys more, both of you.
Thanks, Pete.
So just like, trying to figure it out. Number 3, the question is, which is harder, going from 0 to 1 as a founder, or being the first sales hire at a VC-backed startup and growing it to 250 million in ARR? Now, before we dive into that, I need each of you to define one variable on each of your sides. Adam, going from 0 to 1. We all know what 0 is. 0 is from scratch. You haven't even gone to GoDaddy yet to get your domain. But what is one? Is one product market fit? Is it revenue? Is it a certain like amount of revenue? Can you quantify what that one is a little bit more for us?
You're talking to Mark, right?
No, I was asking you. So I want you to. I want you,
0 to 1.
yeah, like what is
Oh,
the one?
What is
one.
one?
I just, sorry about that. I just meant a
Okay.
million ARR. You know, like,
Million in ARR. Perfect.
yeah.
Beautiful. So we're talking. So we're between 0 to 1 million in ARR. Is that harder than first sales hire at a VC backed startup growing it to 250 million? Mark, we know at 250 million. What's first sales hire? Can you just talk us through what state is that business in the beginning? Is it already at 1 million?
It was me and the 4 co-founders, and that's it, in a small puke green office that smelled like tequila in Seattle. So
Perfect. Was
yeah,
it pre-revenue,
no
pre-product market fit?
revenue, no customers. They were just getting ready to launch the product.
Okay. So we're basically one has a founding team, one doesn't, but both are pre-revenue and we can say pre-product market fit. So Mark, you will go first this time. I'll give you more than 2 minutes. I believe I mean, you tell us what side you're defending. I believe it's yeah. Well, you take it away.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if both are hard. I don't think it matters which one is harder. It just depends on like the path that you have available to you. Like when so I started my family before my professional career. I didn't really I lived paycheck to paycheck probably till about my mid 30s. I had a chance, and I met Manny Medina through like a 1 in 10 billion chances. We became friends. He asked me to hop on, and I was like, or he asked me to help him out with some sales coaching. I did. I said, why am I not selling outreach? He said, we can't afford you. I said, I'll do 100% commission. He said, we can afford that. And I sold $1 million outreach in 6 months. And, I did that one person at a time at $65 a seat, selling 1 or 2 seat deals. And I would demo from 7 in the morning till 5 or 6 at night. I'd take my kids to soccer practice, coach my soccer kids, bring them home, help them with dinner with my wife, put my wife and kids to bed at 10 p.m. And then I would work on CRM and Salesforce infrastructure crap from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. with my partner in crime, Manny Ortega, our first RevOps person at Outreach. And then I go to bed and sleep from 2 to 7 and start again. Like, my guess, Adam may have a similar story, but like, don't tell me my story wasn't fucking hard, because I did that for a year. Every day for a year, I did that. That was my schedule. And did I take weekends off? Hardly. But I had built up enough equity with my family that I was able to kind of do that kind of stuff. Like, I wasn't trying to do that with little kids and all that. That I can't imagine how difficult that is. But yeah, like in outreach that was it for me. It was the first time I made real money. It was the first time that like, I had to figure out, like, I got to get a money guy to help me figure this stuff out. Like, and so it was my one chance. And so like, I worked it like really hard, and I really cared. Like, I loved what we were doing. I think unfortunately a lot of it's been perverted with all this automation and spam cannon stuff. And honestly, too, if you go into the settings and outreach, there's a lot of stuff that stop people from doing that, but people go in and change the settings. So, I think that I'm super proud of what we did at Outreach. I could give a crap what the market says right now. Like, we brought something into the world that didn't exist, and now it's considered table stakes. And I think that we need to go back to the drawing board on how we do it. But I think that it's like, and maybe this is a little controversial, but like, guns don't kill people. People with guns kill people. And outreach doesn't spam people. People with outreach spam people. So we got to work on the behavior of the people, not the tool.
Well said.
But yeah, I worked fucking hard.
So yeah, look, probably like the most below the belt thing Mark said, which also made me respect him the most, was Adam hadn't even gotten to 25 million ARR yet. I used to add 25 million in ARR a quarter, which is why I wanted to discuss this. And again, this is just like speaking to the early stage founders and making sure they get the respect they deserve. I mean, and look, you felt it to a large extent, right? Like, there is just nothing like going from this does not exist yet to this is flying off the shelves. And that was kind of like that was just the essence of my argument. I was representing the founders again. And like I said in my post, that though the 9-figure ARR thing is something I can only dream about. And you know, I hope that if I just work for the next 20 years and continue to stack these high churn businesses on top of each other, that someday we will get there. Or maybe we'll do something like outreach and actually be able to sell something to bigger customers. I don't know. But
Adam,
yeah,
let's talk about that just for a second. So, you tell me a little bit. Like, you've had a couple wins in your life. Like, I don't want to make any. You don't need to share anything you don't want to share. But like, you've had some wins. So you have some. There's some insurance. If RB2B just tanks tomorrow, you're not going to not pay your mortgage, right? You know what I mean? Like, you're going to be okay. And
yeah.
I think that's really it's an important distinction when you're trying to figure out what you want to do and how much risk you want to take on. If I'm 22, I got no kids, I'm not married, I live in a cardboard box, like, take all the risk you can.
Go for it.
Yeah, if I'm 35 with 4 kids, a wife, a mortgage, I got to pay for, all this stuff, I can't take a risk like that.
Right.
And I think it's a really important distinction, but also it's the point of the business. So Adam builds and gets to own the reward of building the business because he owns the business. And so him building a $25 million business that he owns a lot of, and he can pay, his team and all that kind of stuff. That's a really interesting way to do it versus a venture-backed business has to be built for like the long haul. It has to last forever. You have to fix all these different things. Whereas, and to correct me if I'm wrong, Adam, but like, let's say R2B2B only lasts 2 more years, but you grow it crazy, and with your margins, you make a ton of money. And if it dies, it fucking dies. Who cares? Versus a venture-backed business, you never have that option. There is no death unless you want to have like this huge stain on your resume and with all the other investors that you're going to have to talk to in the future and whatnot.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I don't think about it exactly like that, but like, make no mistake, we are trying to diversify away from businesses that have a high risk profile. You know what I mean? Like I love creating these products from zero. I think I really am like a 0 to 10 guy when it comes down to it, because I don't know, like we have not a bunch of employees, but we got, we had 55 at retention.com. We did a little downsizing 3 weeks ago or whatever. But like the types of problems that you're solving when your company is that, and I don't think it's that dissimilar as you like 4 or 5x the staff size.
No,
It's just way different than the type of problems that you're solving when you're going 1 to 10 in a super lean way or whatever. And I find that really early stage stuff quite exciting. And the last thing that I would say is I worked in finance for like 9 years. I was a credit default swap trader at Lehman Brothers. The reason that I like made a bad career move, I got fired, and I was sitting there on the sidelines, and I was like single, as you had highlighted. I had saved a little money, and I was like, now is the time for me to try to do this. If I had kids, I was just imagining the scenario, right? Like the same thing happened 6 or 7 years later when I was settled down, kids, private schools, some like Manhattan rent to pay or whatever. I was like, there'd be no way I could do this. At that point, it was like, I'm going to give this everything I got. Worst case scenario, I'll go back and get a Wall Street job and just sort of like endure that until whatever. So yeah, every person's life's different. Every business situation is different. And kind of like you said, if you can bootstrap, do it. But there's a time and a place, right?
I could think about doing it now. 2 of my kids are out of the house and pay their own cell phone and Netflix bills. That's the ultimate sign of parental success, just in case everybody's wondering. I got a kid in college and a little 15-year-old is like my best buddy, but like, they all are excited for me to push my career forward now because I've invested so much with them as kids. And, like Adam and I are totally different spot. He's got a couple of little guys running around. I have no more little guys running around, right? And so, I think that a lot of the discussion really, you have to add up a couple important variables. And for me personally, I wasn't in a place like New York City or San Francisco where I could do something. I lived in a small town of 10,000 people in central Pennsylvania. And the I couldn't sit down and just figure things out the way that, you know, people that are around all these other people could. At least that's what the story I tell myself. I don't know if it's true or not. But I do know is like once I found what I wanted, I worked my ass off and I cared a ton. And that's the two things I tell my kids, like work hard, give a shit. If you work hard and give a shit, like everything else kind of works out for you.
Well,
Agreed.
both of you, there's been great comments about like just sharing the honest conversation of how hard it is, especially being an entrepreneur and parent. So thank you both for doing that and just being honest about like how situational all of this stuff is, because I think a lot of us will look at social media, especially LinkedIn, try to establish different routes for what our venture is. And like really you just have to look at your own, specific situation and assess the risk reward profile, all that other stuff. So thank you both. We got one more topic. So the question on number 4 is about founder brand. So this is something especially pushed in the inbound led outbound world. And both of you are big on founder brand. I mean, you both have, Mark, you have 50,000+ followers. Adam is, 90,000+.
And didn't pay for one of them, Pete. Didn't pay
What's
for
that?
one of them.
Yeah.
I didn't pay for one of them. Wrote every word on every post myself.
That's right.
By the way, I write. I just have help with creative direction.
Fair enough. So the question is, let's think of a world. I mean, you already both touched on how spray and pray and some of these other marketing channels just get completely saturated. It changes the efficacy of different tactics and thus everything evolves. So let's chat about that same concept in the world of founder brands. So as people start to look at the success both of you are having and others like you, I want you to discuss the impact of increased LinkedIn activity and the concept of founder brand. So as people start posting more, how might founders need to adapt their personal branding strategies in order to remain relevant, visible? Are there any potential downsides to over-reliance on LinkedIn for building a founder brand? So just to restate the original question, will founder brand become extinct as people begin to post more? Adam, you get to go first on this last one.
So I think it will become more difficult to break through as more people continue to post. But I think to a large extent, B2B is kind of following D2C in this, and the evolution of LinkedIn in general as the way people consume content on the platform. I think personally that like increasing amounts of mediocre content only pushes the best stuff up even higher. So it it was just the sentence that Mark said on the webinar, which I think he would. I just remember this. I don't even know if you remember this, Mark, but you're like, everybody's going to start doing what Adam's doing on LinkedIn. It's going to stop working.
I don't remember saying that. Maybe I did.
Well, it stuck with me. And that idea in particular, so things that I will say about founder brand on LinkedIn in particular. I think there's an unbelievable power in being able to create organic social media content that your prospects are looking for, because it just intuitively, that's so much more powerful than a paid ad, right? If your prospects are not on LinkedIn, that is not going to work for you, right? It's like if your prospects all live on Instagram, then you're going to need to like figure out how to communicate with them and create organic social on Instagram to have a similar effect as LinkedIn. That's just sort of whatever. But like another part of it is now that this world exists where interest-based content is so powerful, I do believe that a CEO who has sort of found their voice and views most of their job as that craft and is super committed to that craft and spends a ton of time and resources trying to be the best at it, I have a hard time believing that that mindset is going to be widespread across SaaS anytime in the near future. It just maybe eventually, and look, I don't think that like, I think that everything is getting harder for a lot of people for a lot of different reasons. And sort of if you were to come up with like what the traditional VC playbook was, like nothing is working as well as it was a few years ago, right? Or even 5 years ago. So like stuff's getting harder. That's probably still going to be the playbook for VC-backed companies. But I think that more and more of the success stories, early success stories that you hear are going to be kind of this founder bread thing, because like the world is now set up to like get that delivered to it on LinkedIn in a way that it kind of wasn't 5 years ago. So long story short, I think for a lot of reasons, this is only just beginning. And in the same way that like Gary Vee doesn't really take away from the Kardashians, as they both improve their game and like, you know, more eyeballs come to the platform, it's like they all grow at the same time. Like that's just where I think we are with this stuff. I think if you are the best and you continue this like really, if you learn how to break through and you understand the story that you were telling with absolute clarity and you commit to this craft, I think you're only going to continue to see increasing rewards from it. And I don't think there's any other way, at least in the early stage, that is more efficient to get a business off the ground, which is why I'm excited for you, Mark.
Thank you.
And Mark, you're not obligated to take the founder brand is going to become extinct opinion. Okay. You can, however you think it's going to adapt and change, you can feel free to discuss on that. We didn't mean to throw you into the pit there. So take it however you want.
Listen, I don't think I could take that stance. I may have said that, but I think what I was hinting at was more of what Adam said, is like so many people are going to do it poorly or half-assed, or they don't really understand what they're doing. Like, you know, I remember I wasn't posting on LinkedIn. I met a guy named Max Altschuler. Max, we bought his company at Outreach, Sales Hacker, and we would sit on a monthly deal reviews, and Max would sit in and be like, "Oh, I know that person. Oh yeah, I can get you into this. I do that." And then, you know, within an hour meeting, he would have set us 20 meetings via text with like everybody we needed to talk to. And I'm like, "How are you doing this?" And he's like, "You know, LinkedIn, I'm connected, you know, it's my network." And so I was like, "Well, how did you start?" And he said, "I started posting." And so I posted every day for a year. And, you know, I had a couple blips and a couple things that happened. And, you know, probably Adam, as you know, like, you know, you're going along and it's just kind of, you're like, what the hell am I doing? Then you have that first big one. And then you go back down, but you don't go back down to your floor before. You kind of have taken a step change, and the algorithm teaches you a little bit differently. Then you're going along and you have another big one. And eventually you can get to where, you know, there's a huge audience that is typically engaging with your stuff. But I do believe that people look at this as a fad. People look at this as just like cold outbound. People are starting to use AI, and I'm going to be a founder, but I'm not going to put any effort into it. AI is going to write all my posts. And I think that, you know, these algorithms in like LinkedIn feeds, I don't do any other social stuff, just LinkedIn, but like all of these things are going to learn, hey, this is AI. Hey, this is useless content. People aren't engaging with this. And I think the cream of the crop will continue to rise up. I mean, we see the same thing on YouTube. I think, you know, that kind of like direct to consumer or B2C stuff is already happening. I mean, look at like Joe Rogan, Jake Paul, the Kardashians, like you said, like there's all of these people that just start with content and then they move over into what they sell and how to monetize on it. And I think like if you are a founder and you start with content, you're going to probably be okay. If you start with, I want to have a pipe gen engine, you're not going to be okay, because you'll never have the fuel you need to write content every day. People are always like, "Mark, how much time do you spend on content?" I spend 20 minutes every morning writing my posts. That's it, 20 minutes. And the way I do that is I have a system where I capture my ideas every morning. I go through that list and I'm like, "Oh, this sounds interesting." And then I limit myself to 20 minutes. I'm like, don't over edit it. Don't overthink it. It's got to sound like me. I write it in my tone of voice. Like if you read my stuff and you hear me talk, it's probably going to be about the same. And like, I just get it out there, and like, I quit thinking about it. And once I did that, everything started doing really, really well. And so like, yeah, I think it is probably a super efficient way to build a business. That's the way I'm going to build a business. You know, the other day I needed to get some meetings. I got 20 meetings in 2 hours just by interacting with people that interact with my posts that I've never met before. And it's efficient, and ultimately, if you're doing it right, it does good. Like, you know, I've learned a lot from Adam's content. I think a lot of people have learned a lot from my content. You're doing good, and in doing good, good things will happen to you. And Remy, I agree. Jake Paul is a fucking asshat. But anyway, he is super rich and super successful, so I'll give him that.
Cool.
Cheers.
should we
Yeah.
open it up for questions
Yeah,
now?
Pete,
Ooh, I like
we got a bunch of questions. I see Andrew Schultz has asked a bunch.
I kind of like
Yeah,
this.
I know.
Let's team up. Let's make it happen.
Cool. Do you want me to pick them out, Adam? Do you want to do it? What do you?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Andrew Schultz had asked, are either of you aware of any VC-backed businesses that became profitable and distributed cash to founders and employees along the way?
So I think their funds are set up to where they can't actually handle a distribution in that regard, like a dividend. I think the closest proximity is secondary, which kind of does happen, but I think the idea of a large secondary is like somewhat lower probability than a lot of founders may want to think. But I think that idea of like, okay, we're now profitable and we're going to start dividending out cash is like, I've literally never heard of that. And if it exists, it's contrary to what I understand about the structure of the funds and their ability to do that.
You have to, like, once you look at the mechanics of VC, they could never do that. The whole point of a VC is I lay a bunch of bets and I have an outsized return on, 10% of those, and everything else is just garbage to try to find the 10%. And so, if you're in the 10% of the fund, the VC are just kind of pumping you to grow faster and faster. If you're in the bottom 90% of the fund, they're trying to get you to get funded again so that hopefully you can figure it out over time. And so, like, and let's be honest, and Adam, I wonder if you'd agree with this, but like, there's probably 2x the amount of businesses that there actually needs to be. Maybe even less than that. Like, there's just so many of these where like a founder has a good story, a good idea, they're a good salesperson, they sell VC on giving them funding. This should never be a company. It should never be a product. Or it should be like some of these really awesome people that are just one or two people sitting somewhere and they're making, a couple $1,000,000 a deal, just like doing their own thing, right? Like my guy that started a lawn mowing company, he's doing great. He works his butt off, but like, you know what? That's his thing, and he did it.
Yeah.
He's not trying to go worldwide and create the virtual lawn mowing company with $2 million of venture capital seed funding, right? He's just trying to build a business, and I think like that's the one thing about technology is it is the well is poison to touch, because everybody thinks I got to get venture funding. I have to grow in this way. I have to do these things. When I know a lot of people that have built, like Adam, a good business for themselves, and it's doing great for them, their employees, and their families. And you know what? That's a great business. It doesn't have to be worth $1 billion to be a great business. If it's making 6 or 7 families all be able to pay their rent, eat, and prosper.
I have nothing to add. That sounds like it came from me. Actually, the one thing that I will add is like, I think there's this other weird dynamic. It's like what you said makes me want to just keep screaming this, whatever you want to call it, religion to founders through my LinkedIn, because 10% winner and 90% loser, that's just, if you're the founder of that company, that investor is playing a portfolio game and you're not. You are playing one sport probably for a decade, right? That's like, if you get even a little traction, it's probably a decade. So you're entering that game, and then the game that you're playing, like, look, you guys did it at Outreach, but you did it the way that you said you did. You literally took something that did not exist and made it table stakes, and you got a multi-unicorn valuation for doing that. That is a very low probability thing, right? Like it is so much harder to do that than, and again, let's say you're in your 20s, you have no family, you can be ramen profitable, right? Like just get 50K MRR out of the gates, not have to have VCs approve of the idea that you're pursuing. I think that's another disconnect. It's like the ideas that you'll get funded often are not the best for the customer, but you kind of have to pursue that because the brand story is what they would buy. So, there's, it's just a strange world. And I agree with your contention. Maybe twice the businesses exist as they should, but on the other hand, like, could people have niched down and run these like really nice lifestyle businesses in tech? That's the thing. It's like, we're effectively selling air, yet we have the least financial discipline of any sector that exists in the world. These are like very opposing ideas, right? Like, if you sell air, you should run the most profitable companies. And I think eventually they are. But like, yeah. Anyway, I just want people to sort of, rather than push people one way or the other, I just feel like the bootstrapped side of it, there's so many things about the venture side that are like more glamorous and cause people to look at it the wrong way, which is like my whole position about it. It's like, at least understand like the sort of statistical aspect of it, you know, when you go, anyway.
Yeah.
Would you both, it sounds like you both would say that sort of the world has way over, like grossly over glorified the unicorn race funded, you know, and kind of ignored all of the other paths that you could take to become successful and rich in your own kind of definition.
People innately want to be connected to something bigger than themselves that contributes to humanity. Like every human on the planet has an innate desire to do that. And in tech, the way that that is legitimized is I'm a unicorn. And so of course people want to do that trip because it's like it's a concrete thing. We're worth this much and all this stuff. Versus, you know, I might argue that like, you know, some people I know that aren't unicorns, they only do $4 or $5 million in revenue a year, but they have 80% margins and they have two people they split it between. I think I'd rather have that life after having lived the
Sounds
unicorn
like a
life.
good life to me.
Sounds like a damn good life to me. So, oh,
Yeah.
and here, Jessica has an interesting question about AI and email. So listen, AI writing emails, we've all gotten them. We all know that they're written by AI. I don't, I don't understand any revenue leader right now that would trust AI to write an email. And it has to do with two things. One is it's just not quite there yet. I believe it will get there. And secondly, even if your engine is humming, you have to put the right fuel in it. And people are not putting the right fuel in it for the AI to do the good work, right? AI requires time training, and then it requires good parameters and constraints and fuel. And if you don't give both of those things, then you're going to get, you know, weird results or very predictable results. Because don't forget, all AI is doing is predicting what is the next word most likely to exist in this string of words. And so if it's doing that, everybody's going to sound very similar because it's the same predictions that the AI is doing. And the only way to get past that is to give it like a different thing to chew on so that it has different parameters to think through it. And most people aren't doing that. They're just trying to hit the easy button.
I think you nailed that, Mark, right on the head. That was a good question, Jessica. And I think we have 1 minute left, guys. Is there any closing remarks from either of you, or
I want to thank
where can
Mark and
people-
tell everybody before they left that Alina from Chili Piper's coming on next week. She's like the biggest anomaly in tech. She's a woman CEO, is a technical co-founder. She bootstrapped and then raised like 100 million of VC at a unicorn valuation, then went back to profitable and is now newfound religion. So she's coming on next week. I'm really excited to ask her about a bunch of stuff. And I think more tactical stuff from her also. Thank you, Mark. This was a great conversation. I know everybody wanted us to be assholes because they already do. They always do. But like, I just find it hard because I think everything that you say is, whether I agree with it or not, it's very well thought out. So that's what I want.
And
Well,
Mark,
listen,
where can
our only
people?
beef ever, Adam, was why are you calling it embedded outbound? Because I still think that's stupid. But other than that, there was not that much beef.
Yeah, some good LinkedIn posts though.
And
Yep.
Mark, where can people find more about you, follow along on your journey?
LinkedIn, that's where I do everything. I post just about every day. So
Okay, so
Fantastic.
also reminder, YouTube recording. I'm gonna drop a little playlist into the chat. This is where you'll find it tomorrow morning and all the other inbound lead outbound lives. Cool. Sorry to cut you off, Mark. Everyone, boom.
all right.
There you go. Rock on. Thank you, world, for attending a post Labor Day, a holiday edition.
Oh, Adam, in the
Yes.
bottom, Jesse just said, don't worry, people. My diss track is coming soon. It's coming real soon. Get ready,
I
y'all.
can't wait.
Let's go.
They're gonna love it. Back to us being assholes to each other. All
Thanks,
right,
y'all.
man.
See ya.
Thanks a lot, Mark.
Bye.
Bye.